this is Kiz. You're listening to Glow with the Flow podcast, and I set up Hip Hop Heals UK to spread the tools of hip hop and therapy across different audiences. So today's guest in Chamber 34 is from Bristol. Is that right?
Near enough, yeah,
Near enough.
Yeah.
And he's currently studying on the University of the West of England's music therapy course, which is, I'm told by people who've done it, the premier music therapy course in the UK and probably in the world. They've got progressive thinking. They do lots of stuff to change the balance of power, to include, to diversify the field. And I'm really impressed by their work. And even more impressed by the fact that they've invited little old me to speak a couple of times. And I've had a wonderful time meeting students. And one of those students is here with us now. So, guest, tell us your name, please, and where you're from.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Kiz. I'm Miles, and yeah, so I'm pretty much from Bristol. I'm from about an hour away, but I've lived here for over a decade now.
Whereabouts is it? An hour away? Because I know the area pretty well.
Oh, so do you know, like, Evesham?
Yeah, Evesham.
Yeah, just like round there, yeah.
Yeah, that's down the road for us in Birmingham.
Yeah, it's not far, is it? Yeah.
Yeah, I actually worked as a supply teacher, a substitute teacher in Evesham High School for a bit, you know.
Oh, yeah, my sister's boyfriend went there, yeah.
Yeah, I did a term there and it was quite cool because the farmlands that you have to drive through to get to the school had orchards, and I'm a cider drinker, and so
Yeah.
on the weekend, on a Friday, I'd nip over to one of the farms and get like a 5-litre plastic vessel filled with either very nice pear cider or apple cider, and it'd be something like £3.
Yeah, that's it. Apple
Yeah.
country, isn't it? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, scrumpy. So, Miles, tell us about what you do.
So yeah, I'm a trainee music therapist at the moment, just coming up to the end of my first year, which is really exciting. And I've learned so much, and I feel like it's changed my perspective of music, and kind of everything really. You know, I'm looking at everything differently now. And yeah, I like making music. I like playing music. I've got quite a musical family, so yeah.
Wicked. What sort of music is it that you make and listen to, just out of interest?
So, more recently, over the last few years, there's a lot of traditional Irish music. Yeah. And then also, yeah, I mean, drum and bass, jungle, all that stuff, which obviously Bristol is full of.
Yeah.
And, yeah, I mean, that took over my life when I moved here.
Yeah.
So yeah, those are probably the two main things. They're to most people, you'd say they're quite different, aren't they? Traditional Irish music and drum and bass.
You know what? There's a world of difference, but the thing is, if you're in the dance floor and you're having a great time and the music's moved you, I've been on a Kaylee dance floor and that's happened, and we're all joined up dancing in our little partners and whirling around.
That's the thing, that they're both dance music, styles of dance music,
and they're both styles of folk music. You could argue, you know,
yeah,
drum and bass is a root of it comes from the root of hip hop and dub.
Yeah,
you know, there's no doubt about it. There's a fusion of those genres amongst others, and I think once you start thinking about the space that jungle occupies, maybe not so much drum and bass, but jungle, I think there's that reportage from the real life streets, from the underbelly of society. There's a critical consciousness that comes from reggae and jungle, and it's a music that has popped up in a response in a time to a political and economic and social situation, and it's almost like a melting pot and a unifier, and also like a protest movement and a backlash to the sort of Tory capital fear-mongering and division that was going on in the 90s. So yeah, jungle for me is like rainbows and unicorns and happy love spots in my heart. That's the space that jungle occupies for me. What do you enjoy most about your job? Or if I say job, you can interchange that with training.
Yeah. I mean, it's helping people, actually being really useful. That's got to be the most rewarding thing. directly helping people using my skills that I've developed in my life to get to this point now to actually have a real positive effect on others. And you're able to see the change and you experience the change with them. You experience, because you form a relationship with someone and they develop, and that relationship develops, you develop with them, you experience this process with them, and that's got to be the most rewarding thing. Yeah,
It's money can't buy.
yeah, it's nice to feel useful. Yeah.
Thank you so much. So thinking about when you're doing a workshop or when you're, planning or, a therapeutic workshop, how do you know when a good therapeutic workshop has happened? So what are the indicators to you? And you can think about this in terms of one-to-one work, if that's what you're more familiar with in your practice.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's because it's not always about someone necessarily sort of feeling better. I think I said that in commas. It's about someone being able to feel what they needed to feel in that moment, and that could be some really difficult feelings. I think it's knowing that person has been able to use the space and the time to do what they needed to do or to feel what they've needed to feel. That's a success. They might not necessarily come out the other end smiling. Especially when you're dealing with really difficult things. So I think it's knowing that you can tell when someone is able to offload what they've needed to offload, or if they need to get angry, or if they need to be upset. You can feel that in the moment. I think that's a successful session.
That's
Really.
really, really interesting and useful to know, because sometimes we hear about well-being projects and the idea is that you transform people from being as if it was that black and white, from
Yeah.
being bad to good, feeling shit to feeling great. And
Yeah.
it doesn't happen in a straight line, does it?
No.
So if you're commissioning workshops or you're a grant body or a funder or you're in a position of authority in your organization working out how to distribute funds, please don't look at your evaluation and impact as a straight line that people have to go through to get from A to B. Feeling negatively should be considered as a positive indicator, as well as people reporting back joy or feelings of satisfaction in a workshop. Because of what Miles has just said, you might have to go through the pain of loss, and the only way to cope is to express, I think, and emotionally regulate. When you go through and don't emotionally regulate, you're misfiring all over the place and it gets messy, leaks out into your daily life and spills out onto other people. And if you don't process, it can take physical symptoms in your body, it can take root in your body, it can cause disruption in your psychological processes. So you could have hiccups in other areas. That it's like a machine. You can create clogs in the machine. Emotions aren't things that you just sort of slip through a slipstream and it just comes in and out, and experiences come in and out and they don't affect you. You need time and space to build a response, don't you? And building a response to what's happened to you can be horrible to feel, can be positive as well. So I'm really glad you said that, because that's a little gripe of mine.
Yeah, you said that really well then as well. I think you explained that well. Yeah.
That having these conversations are needed so that we can talk and then have ideas. I find that
Yeah.
talking to people on the podcast is improving my practice in untold, and like, I can't put into words how much I've learned from speaking to people, because you might see one thing one way and then saying it to me, I see it in a different way, or maybe relate into my life and
Yeah.
find out something about my life that I hadn't thought about in that way, like how you're talking about music. It's just reminded me I've come to all this because I got so much out of music, and that's
Yeah.
essentially what I wanted to pass on. But
Yeah.
I'd kind of like almost forgotten the, not about hip hop, but just my joy from receiving the music through grief is something that stemmed all of this work. It was a
Yeah.
way of coping kind of thing, because I just listened and listened and listened. I probably listened to more music when I was sad, and it's, I could sit there at the computer for 10 hours and I could just listen to different YouTube songs, and I'd have like a little party for one, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Literally, I wouldn't, sometimes I'd just go into a day where I was going to be going out and doing bits and bobs, and then I just enjoyed myself so much. You go into a flow state, don't you? And then before you
Yeah.
know it, it's like, whoa, it's dinner time now. I've just been sat here listening to tunes. But when that happens, I really enjoy it.
Yeah,
It's
no,
like
I
a
think
day out.
it feels good. I think
Yeah,
it's time well spent as well.
yeah,
It's like
yeah.
I'd say it's quite it's meditative, and like that's so important. I think for well-being, and it's like time with yourself. That's what I mean by fall. It's almost like I feel a little bit like this is kind of maybe what religion used to do for people
Mm.
100 years ago. Well, and songs. They still had songs back then, didn't they? But um, it is important to have that meditative time with yourself, and yeah, be comfortable and happy on your
Yeah,
own in your own space.
music music provides it all, because you can be on your own with it and you can share with other people and have like
Yeah,
equal euphoria
yeah,
kind of thing, can't you?
but you feel connected, because
Hmm.
it's other people who've made that music, and other people enjoy that music as well. So it's still part of the community, I think.
It's like having a one to one with a rapper as well. Sometimes when you
Yeah,
listen to some powerful music that people have written, and then you experience and soak it in, it's like having a bath, isn't it? You get
yeah,
totally washed over by it, and it's like you've met the person and you're listening to their innermost thoughts, and you don't have to. It's like you've got no wrapper between you
yeah,
and them. You've got no barrier, because their raw creativity is hitting you in a raw way, a visceral
yeah,
way through your senses, and you're moved by it. It's a powerful tool, man.
yeah, absolutely.
So, thinking about what things you have to do to make sure that one of your sessions goes well, can you tell us a little bit about your process for preparation? What helps you ensure good practice? What are the things you have to do before a session to make sure that it's going to go well,
Um,
or
so
as well
obviously,
as possible?
yeah. Well, obviously, it's important to feel that you're okay, or as best as you can be. So when we're on the course I'm doing, we all have to be in therapy as part of the course, and that's to look after ourselves.
Hmm.
Obviously, like when you're learning about this stuff, you're covering a lot of difficult ground, and you're working with people that might be in some difficult situations. So it's really important um, to be okay. Yeah, to be okay yourself.
Hmm.
Um, and then also obviously being in therapy when you're training to be a therapist is you're learning what it's like to be on the other side. Um, and then also, I mean, from a practical point of view, I mean, when we set up our sessions, I mean, we literally think about how we're setting this up today, and we arrange the room in a particular way that's inviting for someone to come into, not cluttered. So the way we do it, where I'm working at the moment, is we sort of generally we arrange instruments around the edges of the room, maybe one in the middle. Um, Perhaps you sort of slightly angle some things. And then we kind of go out and we come into the room and imagine what this looks like. So it's almost like interior design. You're like
Mm.
thinking about what's where, and you want your client to be coming in and to be feeling really comfortable, and to be feeling like this is their space when they come into the room, and all
Mm.
of the different elements of the room are there ready for them in just the right place for them to explore. And they might come in and they might use everything. They might go around the room and like play with all the instruments. We work with a lot of children, so sometimes they don't even touch the instruments. They just run around and they play with other objects in the room.
The more you describe in this process, the more I want to come in and like run around the room. Can you set this
Yeah,
up for me next time I come to Bristol, please?
yeah, of course. Yeah. Put a word in. Um, yeah, and then, but equally, they might, they might go down and they might just sit with one instrument and just sit there for the entire session. But so yeah, we've got to think about, is the space set up right for them? And I have worked with someone else who was very young, and they liked the lighting down, and then we had
Mm,
some colourful lights in this space as well. So they liked the lighting down and the colourful lights on, and
mm.
they expressed that every week. So that was what they wanted. So I mean, yeah, the space is the client space when they come in for the room, and you need to prepare that for them.
That's a really good way of putting it. I hadn't thought about it like that. So thank you for sharing that tip.
Yeah.
So thinking about safety now, what makes your workshops or your one-to-one sessions safe for you to deliver and for participants to participate?
So the one I'm in at the moment, we actually have a little team, and so we all kind of help each other. We keep each other in check.
Hmm.
Um,
Can you tell me a bit more about how that works? Is it like a weekly meeting or is it a
yeah, so
debrief after?
yeah, once a week. So we'll do what's the opposite of a debrief that comes before? A
Like a
brief. Yeah,
like a
brief.
preliminary sort of brief or
Yeah.
chat,
So we do that when we get there.
a
Um,
pre-brief.
yeah, pre-brief. We do a pre-brief. Um, and then so our clients come in, and like I said, so we're working with children at the moment. And so the other one who's not working with the client may greet the parents, possibly. Um, and then, yeah, when our sessions are finished, we all talk about our work with each other, and we go over things, problems that we might have had, discuss
Mm.
it, give each other ideas. Um, and then we also have clinical supervision, which we do aside from this on a different day. That's at uni, so that's when we're the group, and it's kind of similar. It's a similar thing, but with slightly larger group, and we all talk about our work, um, and we talk about problems or things that have gone well, and we support each other and we help each other.
So
So yeah, peer
what
supervision.
what is the benefit for people who might not have ever engaged in these processes? Because I know that when you're doing therapeutic work, it's ingrained in the process. When
Yeah,
you're working as a teacher or a youth worker, it's not ingrained in the process, but it is equally of importance.
yeah. Well, I mean, to put it simply, it's like, six minds are better than one. Um, and so other people might have an entirely different perspective, and
Mm,
often when you're in the work yourself, it's like if you're being creative. Let's say you're like making a tune or you're painting a picture or something, you get so absorbed in what
mm,
you're doing and what your ideas are and what your perspective is. That's kind of all you can see. But then someone else might come along and be like, oh, what about if you do that there and put that there? And, they might have a really good idea. And that's exactly what this is. But it's really important. I feel like we really support each other because the work can be really difficult. Some people are working with, all sorts of trauma and abuse. Um, and it's so helpful and supportive to have your peers come along and say, you're doing okay, you're doing really well.
mm.
And we sometimes we literally look at each other's work, and some people might think that, oh, I didn't think that went very well. I felt like I did the wrong thing, and then everyone else gets to look at it and say, no way, like you were bang on. What you're doing there is perfect. Um, you know, don't feel bad. You should feel really good about what you're doing.
Yeah.
So it's just that support for each other's well-being, support for each other's work, and in the end, then it's kind of like that client isn't necessarily just doesn't necessarily just have one music therapist. There's a whole team of therapists behind that, um, all coming together to try and support this person, the client. Yeah, and that's like I said, it's 6 minds better than one.
Yeah, sounds really like if you are going into something new, it's easy to shoot yourself down for not knowing it all. But
Yeah,
it sounds like those processes are, especially as a trainee, helpful for overcoming imposter syndrome as well as teasing out the things that you need for good practice and getting a second opinion on what you've done. Because it's so easy to look at what you've done as inadequate and see the faults,
yeah,
and it takes an outside perspective because our automatic go-to is what we haven't done, isn't it?
yeah,
Whenever it's something that you're looking at as a self-critic, you always look at what you didn't or what
yeah,
you should have done.
yeah, and you can blow it up so big in your mind,
Mm.
and you think that's all that happened. I mean, so the other thing that we don't always do, but if we can, we speak to the client at the beginning and ask them, would they mind if the sessions were recorded, either just the audio or the audio
Mm.
and visual, or the audio and visual
Mm-hmm.
video. Obviously, they would sign a consent form.
Is that
Um,
just as a trainee kind of thing, or would that happen
no, that
elsewhere?
that that would happen at everywhere. Yeah,
Okay.
um, it's yeah. So it's people obviously have to give consent, um, and it's not always appropriate with the client. It really depends on what the
Mm.
situation is. But if it is, if you think it could be useful to watch back, so you can see what works well and what doesn't work well, um, and again, or get another perspective. If you can do that, and they're happy for you to do that, then that can be useful. So that's something else that we've been doing. And then again, you get to then watch your session back, um, see an entirely different perspective,
Mm.
um, think about maybe what didn't work well, what did work well. And sometimes you can literally see things that you didn't see. You literally see them. You might
Yeah.
see an expression on someone's face or something
Yeah.
you weren't aware of at the time. Um, yeah, so that's another thing we do.
I haven't done the recordings, but I have had a second person in the room that was supporting and we were co-delivering. And I think because I'm doing work around trauma, it's a part of the trauma-informed process to have two people in the room because anything can happen. Behaviours unpredictable, and for a truly trauma-informed approach, you do need two facilitators to hold the space because if somebody's really dysregulated and not well and suffering, it is accompaniment and connection that you need. So leaving anyone in the group to go and soothe the individual or leaving the individual to self-soothe and staying with the group, that's not creating connection. That's
Yeah,
not creating any warmth between people. So you need a double act so that you can go and do these things. And having that second person means that you do get to hear things that you never picked up or conversations that you weren't privy to. So that's something to consider about safety. Having tools like recordings and video and consent and talking to people about when is appropriate, if at all, to record,
yeah,
and also having volunteers in sessions that are appropriately trained
yeah,
and adequately experienced to do the work with you.
yeah.
Okay, so we're going to move on to external factors that you need to put in good practice. So I'm thinking about sort of systems and funding and like the building, anything external to you. What is needed to put on a good workshop, a therapeutic workshop that's external?
Um,
Any external factors?
so, I mean, I think at my stage at the moment, I wouldn't know much about funding. Um,
That's okay.
that's something we're going to be learning, but I will be learning about on later on in the course. But I do know at my stage at the moment, obviously, you need a toolbox of instruments.
Hmm.
So that's obviously really important. If you're doing music therapy, you need. I mean, you can use your voice, but really, you want a variety of things that someone can go and use
Mm.
and play with. But bringing it back to the hip hop side of things, I mean, it was when you came and did a talk to us that suddenly I started thinking, wait a minute, I can I've got stuff at home I can use that I hadn't thought of using yet, because we've been learning
Yay!
about we've been learning about so it's like clinical improvisation using instruments. And like I said, it's not really like necessarily bound to any sort of genre or style of music, because it's about giving an instrument to a client and letting them play with it, and then you play along with them and feel what they're feeling with them. But you were talking to us about you kept mentioning, oh, we've got jungle and drum and bass here, and that's like our culture. And then I suddenly thought, I mean, I haven't had these things for very long, but I thought I've been slowly building up a bit of my own kit just to play with myself that I'd not thought about. I hadn't really thought that I'd be able to use that in my practice yet. But then it just clicked, and I thought, yes, I can. I can. It's all I've got the right sort of stuff. So yeah, I would, if this is something talking about external factors, I think you would definitely need some equipment that costs money. So if you do get funding, you might want to put that funding into some good tools that you can use.
That's a top tip. That is
Yeah,
a really good top tip. Thank you.
it's important. Go on.
I was just going to say, you've got some tools there that you
Yeah,
said you'd like to show us.
I'll show you.
I know this is a podcast, but we can audio
I can
describe.
tell you what they are. Yeah. So,
Yeah,
well,
tell
the
us.
first one. So this is actually slightly different. So I've got a loop station here.
What is a loop station?
So it's like it's a looper, so you can loop. So these are all five. These are tracks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You've got 5 tracks. You can plug in just a microphone if you want, but you can also plug in whatever instruments. In fact, you can just put the microphone in, and then you can point it at a guitar or even a xylophone or something. But these are really great for making beats on as well. I mean, anyone can make a beat with these. You don't need
Oh, it
a
looks
drum
like
machine.
fun.
Yeah. You can get smaller ones, cheaper ones as well. But yeah, if you put a microphone into that, these were originally, though, this one was made for beatboxers. So this is the RC505, the Boss.
Wicked.
And this so they've made a second version of this now. So if you go for the first version second hand, should be cheaper. But yeah, so that's very easy to make beats on, loops, anything with just a microphone and a voice. I mean, you could give that microphone to anyone with no musical background, as long as they can make a noise with their mouths, with their hands, or whatever. You can start making beats with that. So, and you could be quite creative, I think, and quite expressive with that. And then, so I've also got this one. This is really cool for making beats. This is a Volca sample. So these, you can get them for around £100. And I think if you compare that to an instrument, like a good basic guitar would be around £100. And, the power of these, up until recently, really, it would cost you like £1,000 to be able to get a machine that you can make beats on like that. So these are really cool.
What does it do?
So
to me, it looks like a silver rectangular box with little space age buttons and knobs and twiddly bits on there, but
so
I've got
you
no
can
clue what it does.
you can load samples into it, any samples you want. It comes with loads of samples pre-made, and basically along the bottom you've got 16 steps, and this is a loop. That is one loop, and you can assign each of these little steps. They look like little keys, a note or a beat or whatever.
So like, ooh,
the sound quality. If you can plug it in properly. It's got little built-in speakers, and then you can like.
sounds wicked.
Yeah, and you can put whatever you want in.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, really fun those. So they're great for making beats, and also, I mean, you can set it up so that, because the idea with what we're doing is that people have no, you need to be ready for people that have got no musical experience at all. So you need to set this up so that someone who knows absolutely nothing about it, the therapy session isn't a lesson. So they need to be able to just play with that and express themselves, which you can do with these. You've got all these knobs you can twist as well, and you can support. So I've actually got another one. There's a whole range of these. They're the Korg Volkers. They've got about 9 of them. So that one's a sample. I use that for beats. This one I use for bass lines. So this is the Volker kick.
Can we hear some bass lines, please, yes. Miles?
You can basically, it's a synth, and you can manipulate it into just playing fat bass lines.
I can just hear bassline garage.
Yeah, it's powerful though, and like I said, it's just playing off these tiny little built-in speakers at the moment. But if you plug that into a proper sound system, it's a real fat.
Really,
really good.
Ooh,
so they're around £100 if you get a good deal on them. And then this is a side one I've got. This is the Arturia BeatStep Pro. So what you can do is you can control all of your Volkers. You can control all of them just using one of these. And this is where it gets really fun and great, I think, for working with clients, because you can actually like put these out of the way, tuck these out of the way, and just give them that. It's got big, bright, colourful buttons. It's got knobs you can twist, and you can express. It's a bit like a keyboard, I guess. You can express yourself using these.
So just to say,
go on.
Just to say to the listeners, this last machine was a bit bigger than all the others, and it had some bigger machine buttons, but you can use those as pads that people press like on a Chaos pad, I guess.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
And tap into the other machines that you've got there.
Yeah.
So you've got all these different bits of kit now, and the work that you're doing before hadn't presented the idea to you that you could use those bits of kit with the music therapy principles. But now that you have got that idea of the connection, what are you thinking? What's your immediate sort of response? What are your first thoughts?
I just want to really get going with them and get using them. Well, yeah, so I think the reason why I didn't think they were necessarily possible is because I thought they were probably too complicated. You need to teach people to use these. And I think what I started thinking about is that, yeah, like if you set this up properly yourself, if I do all the learning and I teach myself how to use them, I can set these up in a way whereby someone who knows nothing can go and start pressing buttons and playing things, twisting things, making sounds, expressing themselves. And at the same time, because of this particular setup I've got, I can also be doing it with them. I think that's the other thing. I thought we could still form a relationship together because, for example, if they've got this in front of them, I could have that in front of me and we're actually playing the same beat still. Because that's the other thing that it's about, forming a relationship with someone and being kind of really connected with them in that moment. So that's what I suddenly sort of realized. And again, I think even the other thing I thought is I could, the loop station I showed you at the beginning, so that you can actually sync to these other things so they can all be in time together. And I started thinking, well, one person could be playing around with the beats, whilst another person could have the microphone on the loop station. And there's just there's a lot of room here for people to play and be expressive and not be confined to one little thing as well. If someone decides they don't want to do that and they want to go around there and start playing with those buttons, or they want to start playing with this one, or they want to just grab the mic and go off, there's a lot of room here. It just required me to sort of realize that and to think about how I would set this up in order for them to make it work. And I think I'm still thinking about that now. So to answer your question, what my thoughts? I'm still thinking about how can I create the conditions that I've been learning about, clinical
Mm.
improvisation. How can I create those conditions now with this type of thing?
Yeah, Dr. Elliot Glan had
Yeah,
shown me some of the things that he was doing with therapeutic beat making, and he was talking about the call and response stuff where he was pressing a button on his sample pad, client was responding with their own. He's improvising, you're regulating because you're touching the different buttons, so your
yeah,
body's in coordination with your hands, your eyes, your thoughts, your feelings. And he was talking about how using a rhythm with your hands and your body. You're still playing the sample pad, the loop machine, or whatever, and you're having to manipulate and use your body. So the hand eye coordination thing and the concentration starts to step in. So there's a podcast that we did with him in season 1. And I think it was around podcast number 8 or 9,
yeah. I
something like
listened to
that.
that one actually.
Did you listen to it?
Yeah,
Yeah, so
yeah,
he was talking about the beat making process, but he's done loads of work and has pushed out some research in that field. So I'd recommend looking at his work on
yeah,
Google
yeah.
Scholar as well.
Yeah, yeah, no, that was really useful. I think that was the first thing I asked you when I got in touch with you, really, wasn't it? I wanted to know who else is doing therapeutic beat
Yes.
making and how are they
Well,
doing it.
this is it. If we start sharing what we're doing, it's through the medium of this podcast that I met Elliot, and then I'm meeting you, and
Mm,
then I'm able to pass on to you that there was a previous podcast. So I really want this to be an exchange of ideas for the
yeah,
community that's using music and using, in particular, alternative forms of music and music making in the therapeutic space, and looking at underground music because that is just what I'm interested in and my
yeah,
passion. So thank you for bringing this to my attention, and thank you for
yeah,
even like getting in touch and asking the question, because I'm learning a lot from you in this podcast right now. You've set off a lot of ideas in my head. So I'm developing and expanding my model to think about processes I do as a writer, but from a music therapy perspective. So imagine that having your loop machines and your, instruments and things for people to play with. With me, I've been doing it through processes where I might watch a hip hop video. We might look at the lyrics. We might explore a theme. I have supported safe discussions. We create a therapeutic alliance. There's a journey of transformation that is carefully planned and ethically managed. But on a very simple level, if I was to take words from a song and put them out in a pile in a jar and leave that jar on a desk, that is like having a musical instrument that you could get people to just muck around with the words and then go
yeah,
to another station where you've got a whole lyric with some of the words rubbed out and they can put their own version in, or you've got another station where people can put a few ideas down with BandLab, and then
yeah,
another station where you might look at some graffiti and respond to the graph and get your
yeah.
creative ideas for your song lyrics and stuff. So, incidentally, I was working with another Miles who got in touch with me because his ex partner had been at a talk that I'd been at and delivered down at the University College of London.
All right.
And that was on the MASc in Creative Health. So, when she heard about me doing hip hop therapy and stuff, she contacted her ex and said, "You know what, Miles, you need to really get in touch with this Kiz girl because she's doing therapeutic hip hop and you'd really like what she does." So he got in touch, and he's at uni in Berlin doing a social work master's. And he asked to come on the placement for a month. So he came over to Birmingham.
Oh,
He actually had family over in Evesham.
really?
That's
Yeah,
so weird, yeah. I'm pretty sure it was Evesham or was it Pershore or something like Droitwich or something like that. But
yeah, similar area.
Droitwich, Evesham, similar area.
Yeah,
So he was due to stay with his family members and then come to work with me, and I learnt so much from him, thinking about his sociology and how he makes beats and raps, and then what you've just said. So the more variation, the more people, the more diversity we can bring into this field, the
mm,
more rich it will be for everyone. Because I could
yeah.
tell you stuff about my model that hopefully would stimulate ideas for you in your work as well. But
Oh,
if
yeah,
we're
it
not having
definitely has already. Yeah,
if we're not having the conversation, we can't do that. So
yeah,
hopefully this is going to be sparking ideas for people listening at
yeah.
home.
I enjoyed listening to the one with Crust as well.
Yes.
Yeah, he's great. And that first drum and bass record I ever bought was Warhead, one of his tune.
Wow. Ooh,
So that
ooh,
was
ooh,
cool.
ooh,
Yeah,
ooh, ooh. That
yeah,
was that was, I remember when that first came out, it was just first time I ever heard jungle. My brother came home and was like, Kids, listen to this. Put the cassette in the player and went with the play button, and I went, oh, what is that?
yeah,
What is that? What is this? And here we are today, now interviewing people like yourself and Crust.
yeah.
Well,
Wicked.
hopefully, I want to bring the jungle and the production into the therapeutic sort of space around hip hop therapy in the UK, because not everybody goes out and listens to hip hop, and it's not in the culture in the same way as the US. So I think we need to be thinking about, the UK drum and bass is popping off worldwide right now, isn't it? All
Oh yeah,
sorts of
yeah, yeah,
big name producers and DJs like David Guetta are playing a drum and bass track from the UK in their sets at massive festivals like Tomorrowland and festivals in America, and it's really diversifying the audience. And I think
yeah,
where hip hop therapy has reached the hip hop, I think we also need to be looking at similar stuff and similar work around drum and bass and jungle, and that's something that I've been doing in my work, bringing in videos and songs and lyrics and thinking about, different people and how they would respond to those lyrics and what they would feel when they heard those lyrics. Because I know for me, if I was going into an arts and health workshop and it was about the kinds of things that I'm into, it'd feel like a blessing because they're not really recognized in these spaces.
yeah.
So we're moving into the last couple of questions now, last few questions, and we're thinking about barriers next. So, what barriers might stop you from offering a good therapeutic hip hop workshop? What would get in the way?
I suppose it would be. It's kind of what I talked about before
Hmm,
about what needs to happen for it to be good. I think, yeah, if I wasn't looking after myself, that I think that's really important. You need to be in a good space. You need
absolutely.
to be supporting other people, especially when those other people might be dealing with difficult things that then you're experiencing with them. Um, so yeah, I think uh, not looking after yourself. Um, but then I guess that's where all the supervision of things that comes in to sort of help check you on that, which is, again, is another reason why it's so important. To, you're sort of keeping each other in check as therapists. Um, I mean, I think that's the only thing I could think of at this
That's
stage.
okay. That's
Yeah.
okay. That's a good. Thank you. And it just made me think of another question, which was, what do you do to look after yourself?
Well, for my well-being, I mean, obviously playing music is still my thing. Um, and now, yeah, so since I'm on this course, I now do therapy. So I do talking therapy, which is really useful. It's amazing, and I kind of I started doing that. A lot of people would go into that because they've got a reason or an issue that's come up, and they think I need to talk to someone. Whereas for me, and I mean, I mainly went in at the time because I was on this course and I had to do it for this course. But then, of
Hmm.
course, so many things come up, and you really start feeling the benefit of therapy. Um, and you start looking forward to it, and you start when stuff happens in your week, you think, well, I'm going to get to talk about that, tomorrow or whenever it is, and I know that that's going to be really helpful, and I know that I'm going to feel better after I've had that conversation. Um, so yeah, so that's one thing I do. And then, yeah, I don't know, for my own the rest of my well-being, I mean, I like to try and keep healthy, you know, eat good food and like go for a run or whatever, and listen to music. That's the main thing for me. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So, looking back to when you began this work, can you tell us one or two things that would have helped you measure the impact of your work better or more easily?
So one thing, well, like I said, I mean, I've touched on this already, but and we've been, I was doing this from day one as part of my course,
Mm.
but I do find for me being able to record it was very good. Watch it back, make
Mm.
notes on it. We make clinical notes, we make reflective notes. The reflective notes are really useful. So just writing about how you feel. It could be anything, there's no right or wrong. It's just personal for you, but reflecting on how you feel after a session. Something I haven't done yet, but I think I will start to do more, is then going back to these notes and reading them again.
Mm.
So I think that could be really useful now, finishing with a client, going back and reading your notes from the beginning and then reading some of them throughout the thing. I imagine that would be really helpful for yourself in knowing about how you've done as a therapist, but also about your client's journey, because you forget things and you end up just remembering the end, don't you? Like that's kind of how you remember people, the last,
Mm.
how they were. And I think definitely for measuring impact, I mean, I haven't done this yet, but it would be really useful for me to, go and read those notes from the beginning, compare them to
See,
the ones at the end, and I'm
see the
sure,
transformation
yeah,
kind of thing. Yeah.
yeah, and I've no doubt I've forgotten. I can't remember at all what I can vaguely remember the sessions. Definitely can't remember how I felt.
Yeah.
But that's all there. It's all written down, so that's a really good thing. Um, and maybe like another thing could be like if you've got the time, like coming back to some theory or doing some of your own research on, have there been any papers written about whatever it was you were doing with your client already, and um, does that resonate with you, or have you had a different experience, or maybe you might have found something new, you might have discovered a new technique, or something that hasn't been written about yet but that you've experienced, because that would be worth knowing. Looking into some theory. So
So you can review what you've done in the light of that theory.
yeah, so if you've had an
Hmm.
experience with someone who is suffering this particular thing,
Hmm.
um, it might be, because I can think of the client I've worked with. um, I could now look up some theory now and just see if um, things played out, if that's how they played out for me, or
Hmm.
whether if my experience possibly was very different. And if it was, that would be worth noting and sharing. Does
That's a
that
really
make
good
sense?
tip. Yeah, that's a really good tip. So I was just thinking, when stuff's happened and I didn't understand it, sometimes I've read about a process and then I've realised what had happened and then learnt that I could re-steer it in a different direction if I'd have known that theory or model or approach. And it's not to say that everybody's the same. You can use one model with everybody. It's more about, this is a bag of tricks. Just like
Yeah,
people might, you might like pasta, I might like bread. So
yeah,
having a different theory for different people, you could have your pasta theory and I could have my bread theory and it would make sense with me, but it's not that one size fits all. I just want to
yeah.
precursor that, with everybody listening, they're not there just to tell us answers, theories. They're
No,
there to suggest.
definitely not. And what's important is you. I think you are the therapist, and that is what you bring. You bring yourself. All theory aside, you bring yourself, and but that's why your own experience could be really important in sharing with others, because you might have a
Mm.
particular insight or an experience that no one else has had, and you only achieve that because you're you. You know, but it could be useful for other people to know about. To help inspire them or give them ideas or whatever.
Yay!
Yeah,
Yay! And help inspire ideas! Yay! Give them that! Yay! That's what we want here. Like, it's so good to hear. It really is so satisfying. So, what was the biggest, most helpful tip that you learned on your course about evaluation that you're glad that you know now?
um, so what I mean, one thing I got told is that yeah, so I'm doing a course where we've got marks and we have to do assignments, and
Hmm.
one of my tutors said to me, you could get 100% on everything and know all of the theory off by heart and have read every single book, grade A student, and then you could still be a terrible therapist or not a very good therapist, because you know because that the other side of that is that you could get you could do really badly. You could just scrape through the pass, but be an incredible therapist because of who you are, your own personal experiences. So yeah, don't get bogged down by grades at all.
Mm.
It's really experience, I think, is experience and connecting with people, and yeah, sharing ideas with people that way, like this, like what we're doing now. And be yourself. Yeah, be yourself. Don't try and be something that you've read in a theory book, because that's just weird.
Yeah, you try and fit yourself into the mold of something that doesn't work for you, and then
Yeah,
it becomes more forced in the moment. So you're not
yeah,
present for the client or the person that you're working with or
that's
the
it.
people that you're with.
Clients need people, real people, humans to, share and make a connection with. That's what they need. Someone who's there to listen and
Mm.
feel their feelings with them. And you can't learn that in a book. Um, so
So
yeah,
how do you know when you've come out of your workshop or your session and you're thinking back to how the person's felt, how you felt? What helps you to assess where they are in their sort of therapeutic process? Then I think another layer of this question is also about how you know when something good has happened and how you know how to measure it and what you can do, what tips you can pass on to others. So there's sometimes like a look in the eye with a person or like a knowing and you don't say anything. The person that is in the workshop or that you've just done the work with, you've gone through a shifted feeling, they've gone through a shifted feeling, and it doesn't have to be said.
yeah,
It's known without words. But
yeah,
like there's things with this therapeutic space and the mentoring space where you wouldn't measure or you wouldn't be able to report back. That so like for a funder to want you to do this work with their community, you need to convince them that it is worthwhile. So how would you sort of like prove that you've had that feeling shift and you've made a connection? Because how do you measure whether you made a
yeah.
connection with
I
somebody?
mean,
Do you know what
it's very hard to prove to someone who's outside of that space, because
I
that
mean?
space is just between you and a client. So you might have to think outside of the box to get, well, to be honest, maybe that's where the theory would come in. If you were trying to get funding, you'd then
Mm,
maybe like, you know, use the theory to sort of prove that this works or whatever. But actually, with a client in the moment, so we learn a lot about. We've been learning a lot about attunement. So you know, connecting with someone in the room. I mean, this all comes back to the relationship. Really, it's about your
mm,
relationship with the person, and when you really feel like you've made a real good relationship with someone, and you're attuned together, so you're feeling the same feelings as one without needing to say anything or do anything. The
mm,
two of you are feeling something together, and you can. One of the ways you can know that is definitely in music therapies through playing music. Um, you might not be playing the same music as the client, but you're playing
mm.
together, and it's almost like the feeling of
I
flow
was
when you're
going
being
to
creative.
say,
You just
yeah,
feel that you can feel a
matching.
connection. Yeah,
Yeah, it's in
you're
tune
matched.
with each other. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's like in harmony. So you're
yeah,
not doing discordant sort
yeah,
of rhythms and stuff.
yeah. Or you are doing discordant rhythms because you can feel that's what they're feeling, and you're both feeling. You know what I mean? So like
So you're in tune with them being discordant kind of thing.
you're attuned with
Yeah.
however it is that
Okay.
they feel.
Okay.
And but it's important that you know that they know that you know how they feel.
Can you say that again?
So like the client needs to know, the client can
Yeah.
feel that you can
You
feel what
feel.
they're feeling, and they know that if they're playing like this on the piano, so softly, and then they start playing with more aggression, or maybe they still keep playing softly, but there's something about them in their feeling that changes. They will be able to hear that change in what you're doing. They can hear the change and they can feel it,
Mhm.
and they know that you are feeling that you're connected and you're feeling something together and you've got a really good relationship. Um, yeah, that is when they are experiencing their own feelings and emotions reflected back to them via you as a therapist.
So to spit this back at you, something that could be useful for you or for other people to think about in terms of evaluation when they're starting out is to go into the body and to feel the connection and to
Yeah,
listen to what they are doing and producing and respond to what is being presented to you.
yeah,
So I think to wrap it up, if even if it's not in a music therapy process, if you're in a youth club, you're doing some beat making with some kids, if they're all over the place and tapping on keys or sample pads that are making a chaos of noise, matching where they are and feeling into where they are and reflecting what they're coming up with helps to create that space for a relationship to connect and form and create attunement with the person. So a tip going forward could be about being in the body and responding to the person in the moment and monitoring how much connection is there and matching and attunement is there in that sort of level, which is something I hadn't thought about in terms of evaluation because that's not an area that I would normally evaluate. So thank you very much, Miles.
that's right.
Great. That's great. So final thing, and this is a quick fire one, nice and easy.
Yeah.
It's five qualities that you would assign in a job description for a therapeutic hip hop practitioner. So if you were writing the job description for somebody doing therapeutic hip hop therapy, what would be the person spec?
Ooh. Well, you got to have empathy, haven't you?
Yeah, empathy.
Um, I'm trying to think the right word. Playfulness, I reckon.
Okay, you were going to say curiosity. That by the
I was
sound
going
of
to say creativity, and then I thought
it.
playfulness is better.
Okay.
But
Yeah. So
curiosity, I reckon, could be a good one, though. Yeah, curiosity. Kind of linked to playfulness, isn't it? You've
yeah.
helped me there.
So
Um,
so the first one was
empathy.
empathy, and then like playfulness and sort of curiosity, and
Yeah.
so number
Um,
three.
I think like kind of just like a real. I don't know if there's a word for this, but like want in a real want to connect to other people. I think you got to
Hmm.
be a people person.
Okay, yeah, that's a good way to put it. A people person.
Yeah. How many more we got? Is that three?
Um, yeah,
Empathy,
empathy,
playfulness.
plainness, and creative curiosity. I suppose, yeah, this is people person would be three. Sorry, so
Yeah.
four would be.
And I guess, well, we're talking about music therapy. I mean, you've got to be into music. You've got to have a love for music.
That's a
Yeah.
good one.
So
Four.
you don't necessarily have to be an amazing musician as long as you've got a real passion for music. I think that's the core. That's the core of it. Yeah. Um,
And then last one, number five.
that's one. I think you've got to be. I mean, you've got to be strong. You've got to be a strong person because you're dealing with really difficult things that other people. Sometimes horrific things that other people have been through, and you need to experience that with them. So I think some level of strength, um, it would be really beneficial. Yeah,
Thank you so much, Miles.
that's all right.
It's
Thank
been
you.
really. It's like feel like we've been on a journey here. This has
Yeah,
been mad. Like we've had a right deep. This has been the longest conversation that I've had on the recent season because I
really.
think we've gone into so much depth, and you were worried
Yeah,
at the start that you weren't going to have anything to say about this. It's
yeah,
funny,
it's
isn't it?
true.
It's
Yeah,
funny, isn't it? Like I've spoken to some other practitioners, and we've gone bum 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 bum. So yeah,
yeah,
very
great.
rich.
Thanks so much for having me. It's honestly a real privilege.
Yeah,
And
thank you for coming along. And well, this is a relationship that's going to carry on and blossom now. I hope
yeah,
we'll
for
keep in
sure.
touch and that you'll stay in touch and we'll hopefully work together in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. That'd be great.
All
Yeah.
right, then. So, what would you like to leave us with before we go? Have you got any closing thoughts about what we've talked about?
Um, I mean, the main thing I'd say is just to really encourage anyone who is hearing this and feeling like I could do that, or I'd love to do that, to just go for it, because the world needs more music therapists, I think.
Hmm.
It's a really accessible form of therapy. It's something that the masses can really relate to, possibly a lot easier than other forms of therapy. It's so beneficial, especially for young people um, today. Young people who are, I think the rates of depression amongst young people and children are sort of higher than they've ever been, I think, aren't they?
Mm.
And music therapy is a really powerful way to connect with those people and help those people. So yeah, if anyone's thinking about this, or feels like they could do this, or that they'd like to do this, definitely go for it. Look into it. And the course at
Yeah.
UE is really good. The course I'm on. So, yeah,
And also, you don't have to necessarily have a music therapy qualification as well. You can go along to some mini short courses, and you can go along to mentoring and counseling courses that are online, and take some of the basic principles. Just make sure that you're safe and other people have no harm come to them when you're
yeah.
practicing. I think that's the best thing. But yeah, just go
And
out there and find out
just
from other
just
people.
start using music therapeutically as well. I think that what we talked about at the beginning, like it's really powerful when you view music in that perspective. You can realize how helpful it is for people's well-being, and share that with others.
It's the greatest gift that you can give, I think, isn't
Yeah,
it? Something that you've learned and benefited from when it's come from your heart, and you've physically, mentally, emotionally benefited from something, and you can say to somebody afterwards, do you know what? This actually works, or this actually helped me. It's easier to relate to for somebody else that's going through something than when a doctor says, I've read in a book this would help, or
yeah,
I've heard about a theory where this would work. You
yeah,
know what I mean? So yeah, listeners, get in there and get on it, and get in touch if you want any more tips and tricks. We're doing season 3 at the moment, and that will complete this 36 chambers. This is chamber number 34. But I've got a funny feeling there's going to be another journey and another podcast and a whole another 36 chambers as this continues, and the journey, it doesn't stop at the end of this. It's going to carry on blossoming and developing. So yeah, let's keep the conversation open and keep in touch. It's hiphophealsuk.org for the website, and you can find our webinars on trauma informed hip hop, and all our previous podcasts on our YouTube at Hip Hop Heals UK. So thank you for your time, and big up, Smiles.
yeah. Thanks, Kiz. Nice one. Enjoy the
Woo!
rest of your sunny day.
Thanks, mate. Bye.
Cool. See you later. Bye bye.